As more and more begin to know, the status quo has got to go. They're bound to say yes to a man named Dr. No, a man who makes the establishment panic. Grassroots are growing way too wild, too organic.
This weekend's late-night spending vote in Congress seems like another in an endless series of sequels to a bad suspense movie. Just at the brink of disaster, just before the stroke of midnight, Congress pulls off a miracle and passes an omnibus bill to save us from a government shutdown. The heroes have saved the day. Unfortunately, this latest sequel is as bad as the previous ones, as the American people are left with a massive $1.2 trillion spending package to add to our already $34 trillion in debt. Military spending will, of course, be increased yet again, as the military-industrial complex demands more of our wealth to feed its ever-increasing appetite. And if this military spending increase is not enough, congressional leadership is promising another huge supplemental bill to further fuel proxy wars in Ukraine and Gaza, with some money to provoke China as well. Republicans like to talk a good game about reining in spending, especially during an election season. But as we learned with this compromise and all previous compromises, it's all talk. At the end of all the dramatic warnings about shutting the government down, we are left with a Washington-style compromise, meaning the leadership of both parties gets to throw anything and everything they want into the massive bill. Because it is only presented to the rank and file at the last moment before disaster, none of the members get a chance to even read it, much less shape it through the amendments debate process. The Republican House leadership promised the membership 72 hours to read any new bill before a vote, but they broke their promise without hesitation. Members would like nothing better than a chance to read the more than 1,000-page bill, which was worked out in secret behind closed doors. There is likely a reason that congressional leaders did not want members to get the chance to read the bill. As Representative Thomas Massie discovered, buried in the bill is funding for 13-year-old children to get help with gender transitioning without consent from their parents. He also pointed out that although nowhere was it in the authorization bill, just hours after the omnibus passes, the Department of Justice announces the creation of a federal red flag center to attack our Second Amendment rights. Who knows how many more items like these, and far worse, are deeply buried in the must-pass spending bill. Keeping these items from the American people by secretly embedding them in must-pass legislation increasingly looks like a feature, not a bug. No wonder Congress enjoys such a low approval rate among the American people. In the end, the bill only passed the Republican-controlled House with the support of Democrats, fueling a growing rebellion against Speaker Johnson among House conservatives. The media celebrated bipartisanship is not all it's cracked up to be. It means that both parties embrace policies that are leading to our financial bankruptcy. This further threatens the dollar as the world's reserve currency and will result in catastrophic changes worldwide that nearly no one in Congress seems capable of imagining. Republicans capitulating to Democrat demands to save us from a government shutdown may temporarily keep the appearance that this is fine, but in the end, they are making the coming crash all the worse. Thanks for listening.
So last month, Assange's legal team presented its case for the appeal. And so again, this is the decision on whether or not they can do, a formal appeal. And as far as I understand, if this gets rejected, Assange doesn't really have any other legal steps left to fight the extradition. I think there's just one European human rights court they could try to go through, but not sure how binding that would even be in the UK. One thing I mentioned in this story, because I think it's just really important kind of to always bring this up. So during the appeal hearing last month, Assange's legal team did present some new evidence, including a report from Yahoo News that revealed that the CIA in 2017 considered assassinating Julian Assange, according to this report. And they plotted to kidnap him from the Ecuadorian embassy in London over WikiLeaks publishing Vault 7, which revealed CIA hacking tools. And Mike Pompeo was the head of the CIA at the time and was totally furious about it. I think that should be enough to drop the case altogether. So again, we'll see what happens. And this comes after that report that said the U.S. is considering a plea deal for Assange. So we'll see if anything comes out of that. I'm sure both sides are not really discussing it too seriously or considering it too seriously until this decision is made. So what we can do, WikiLeaks has been asking Americans to put pressure on the U.S. by contacting their House representatives and telling them to support H-Res 934, which is a bill introduced by Representative Paul Gosar of Arizona. And this bill calls on the U.S., calls on Biden to drop the charges against Assange. So that's what we could do for our part. Just try to make some noise about this because this is such an important case. This is over the WikiLeaks publishing the Iraq and Afghanistan war logs and State Department cables that Assange received from Chelsea Manning. And that was, his source. He was doing journalism. This they're trying to criminalize journalism. And this could set such a dangerous precedent in the United States and around the world, considering Assange is not an American. He's an Australian citizen, and the U.S. is trying to pluck him out of the UK. Trump said in an interview with Israel Hayam over the weekend that Israel made a big mistake by broadcasting images and videos of the destruction in the Gaza Strip, saying that it's losing Israel a lot of support. Trump said in the interview that he was asked basically, what would you do if your family was killed on October 7th? He said that he would have done the same thing as Israel, like basically justifying this horrific war that's happening here. But he has also said that it's time for Israel to finish it, and because of the global opinion is turning against Israel. So Trump said, quote, "You got to get it done, and I am sure you will do that, and we got to get to peace because we can't have this going on. And I will say Israel has to be very careful because you're losing a lot of the world. You're losing a lot of support. You have to finish up. You have to get the job done," end quote. So when asked by the interviewer about how he would respond to the wave of anti-Semitism since October 7th, Trump said something pretty interesting. I'll just read his quote. He said, quote, "Well, that's because you fought back, and I think Israel made a very big mistake. I wanted to call Israel and say, don't do it. These photos and shots, I mean moving shots of bombs being dropped into buildings in Gaza. And I said, oh, that's a terrible portrait. It's a very bad picture for the world. The world is seeing this every night. I would watch buildings pour down on people," end quote. It was interesting because I've been saying that for a while, that people can see with their own eyes what's happening here. And it's not just because of what Israel's putting out publicly. It's also because of the Palestinian journalists on the ground in Gaza. But at the same time, Israel has put out all these videos, of demolitions and stuff. The one thing that's nice about Trump is he sometimes just says things that they're not really supposed to say. Like this. He said, quote, "Some 15 years ago, Israel had the strongest lobby. If you were a politician, you couldn't say anything bad about Israel. That would be like the end of your political career. Today, it's almost the opposite. I've never seen you have AOC +3, these lunatics," end quote. He goes on there, so I'm just going to end it there. But he's saying it's a bad thing that these politicians are now able to speak out against Israel. And it's only a very small number that really do it sincerely. But he's saying it's a bad, like he's not happy about it. But it's just interesting that he said, 15 years ago would end your political career. So Trump said that the Hamas attack on Israel wouldn't have happened if he was still president. That's something he has repeatedly claimed in any interview when he's asked about this. He called Biden, he says Hamas has no respect for them. He's a very dumb person that can barely talk. And I just mentioned at the end of this is one thing he always says is, oh, this would have never happened on my watch. But he was an extremely pro-Israel president. He gave Israel everything that they wanted, including moving the embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing the Golan Heights as Israeli, these Abraham Accords, and all this stuff, and this so-called peace plan that Jared Kushner crafted, that essentially would have formalized the apartheid conditions in the West Bank, and this all played a role into the tensions. So this idea that he was brought peace to the Middle East is not true, because again, this all played a part. And that was the big thing, the Abraham Accords. That was Netanyahu's thing, was basically go around the Palestinians, open up with all the Arabs, and we don't actually have to settle this issue with the Palestinians. We could just keep doing what we're doing, slowly annexing the West Bank through settlements. That was a big part of Netanyahu's plan, which blew up in his face.
Here's Gerald Salenti with today's trends in the news.
Oil prices are going to escalate. They just attacked Israel, just bombed away again over Syria, killed a bunch of people from the World Health Organization and some Iranians. Iran gets involved militarily with Israel. You're going to see Brent crude go to above $130 a barrel, and that's going to destroy the equity markets and the global economy. And we're on the verge of that. And what have we been warning in the Trends Journal for how long? That Ukraine, to get back in the news, to do anything they can, they're going to accelerate their attacks inside of Russia. Oh, wow, what a surprise that 139 people were killed at that concert hall and hundreds seriously wounded, which they're blaming on ISIS, which Russia says is, is more to it than that. And they're blaming Ukraine, the United States, and the UK for being involved in it. Oil prices going up. How about the end of the world going up? Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, the little daddy's boy, born on third base and thinks he hit a home run, told an event at Harvard earlier this month, quote, Gaza's waterfront property would be very valuable if people would focus on building up livelihoods. Ready? It's a little bit of an unfortunate situation there. A little bit of an unfortunate situation. They're fucking slaughtering people there. What do you mean a little bit of an unfortunate situation? So 70% of the people's homes have been destroyed. They're starving. Unfortunate situation. But from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out of there and clean it up and put the Palestinians into the Negev desert. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? A little fucking piece of genocidal shit. And for all you Trump lovers, yeah, Trump was the guy, Jared Kushner's dad, Charles, who Trump pardoned, gave $1 million to a Trump super PAC. This was reported in August by Business Insider. Charles Kushner, the father of Donald Trump's son-in-law, and the recipient of one of the former president's final pardons, donated $1 million to the Trump super PAC. Kushner's pleading guilty in 2004 to a host of federal charges, including witness tampering and tax evasion. In one of the most salacious aspects of the case, Kushner hired a sex worker to lure his brother-in-law and then sent the video of their encounter to his sister. This is the fucking prick. This is the Kushner family. Hey, what are you going to build, a Trump Tower over there? World War III started. Going back to oil prices. Again, they're attacking Iran again. If Iran gets involved militarily in this, forget about it. You're going to see, again, oil prices are going to spike, gold prices are going to spike, and nuclear war is going to spike. So don't forget to bend over and kiss your ass goodbye, because that's all you're going to be able to do if we don't have peace. Now, it's just terrible. SWIFT is going to launch a central bank digital currency. Go back to your trends journals going back to 2017. We warned about this again over and over again, going from dirty cash to digital trash. Goes back to Bitcoin. Cryptocurrencies are going to, there he goes. That was back in, let's see, that was 4 years ago. That cover. Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies are going to go down when they ban them, when all the central banks go digital. It's as simple as that. But that's a long way away. And again, top trends for 2024, whole section in here, banks go bust. What's going on in the luxury market? The fish rots from the head down. Don't forget it. And you see what's going on there. Oh, and by the way, in China, talking about gold, they're buying it up like crazy. The middle class is going down. Gold sales are going way up. This year already in China, the plantation workers of Slavelandia over there have increased their gold purchases nearly 25% from last year. And China's central bank is the biggest buyer of gold, according to the World Gold Council. So again, and then a whole section on the Israeli war. Just breaks my heart to see what's happening. They're going to keep ramping up the Ukraine war. What happened over there with the blowing up of that concert hall is just the beginning. And all of what's going on. And the French general says that their army is ready for war. Top Polish warmonger says Western troops in Ukraine is, quote, an open secret. And that little guy over there in West Virginia, Mnuchin, keep ramping up the Ukraine war. God help us. They're selling this bullshit along with Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, that if we don't stop it over there, the United States is being threatened. It's been going on between fucking Ukraine and Russia for what, Catherine the Great? It's none of our business. And what else do we have here? Trends I views. Yep. Young Americans Seek into Sadness. Trends in High-Tech Science by Ben Davis. And a whole section on trends in AI. This is real. AI, we own you. That's the future. Tomorrow, tune in, 6 p.m. Eastern Time for Salenti and the Judge. And again, subscribe to the Trends Journal if you want to read history before it happens, because we've been ahead of the curve. They're not even close to what we're reporting. Matter of fact, Now it's like big news that other people are coming out and warning about a banking crisis. Yeah, no shit. It's again, and the big banks, they're saying they're going to be protected. No, they won't. This thing is going to be big. It's again, but don't worry. When all those fails, they take you to war, because World War III is going to heat up unless we have peace.
Let's start with the news today. The High Court in Great Britain rejected 6 appellate arguments made by Julian Assange, but did grant a few that would delay the extradition pending an assurance by the American government that A, he would not be exposed to the death penalty, B, he would be treated as American citizens are. He's obviously not being treated as British citizens are in this British hellhole where he's confined. And C, his First Amendment rights would be respected as if he were an American. I mean, are these judges naive? Who would believe any assurances from the United States government, much less one from the executive branch guaranteeing what the judicial branch is going to do?
Yeah. I don't think you can believe what the United States might promise, what the Department of Justice certainly might promise, because they have lost all credibility in the way they've behaved, not just with the Assange case, but in many different situations. They're a very politicized Department of Justice. You just can't trust them. So I can't imagine that our word, the American Department of Justice, or President Biden's word would be good. And they would, if they want to bring him here, they'll say anything. And once he's here, they'll do whatever they please.
But the Pentagon Papers case stands for the proposition that journalists can publish anything of material interest to the public, no matter what it is, no matter what it says, and no matter how they got it, without civil or criminal liability.
Yeah, that's called a free press. That's the foundation of Western civilization. Really, it's certainly something that we depend on here in this country. And of course, the government doesn't like it. And wasn't it one of the Supreme Court justices who said, "Oh, the First Amendment really strangles the government. It really is constraining on government." It's like, duh, lady, that's what it's for.
Correct. Correct. You know, the government always complains, oh, the Fourth Amendment's a pain in the neck. The First Amendment doesn't let us say whatever we want. Well, that's why we have a constitution, so that the government is an obstacle to your interference with our fundamental liberties. But it doesn't matter. We have the natural right to speak. We have the First Amendment protected right to speak. Yep. They'll still lock somebody up in a hellhole over the speech that he gave. They'll still spy on people. They have 5 years worth of his conversations from the basement of the Ecuadorian embassy, conversations with his wife and his lawyer.
Yeah, there's some at a lower level of the Department of Justice in that Eastern District Court of Virginia that prosecutes a lot of these types of cases. There's some people in there who are hung up about Assange. They feel personally betrayed or something, embarrassed to the max by what was released. The murder tape. I mean, the tapes that Manning was punished for revealing. That angered them so much that they will not drop this bone. And so I don't know what's motivating it, but it is not United States government. It's not United States interest to keep pursuing him and to keep the indictment going. And it's not in really most of the government's interest to do it either. There are people in government, maybe deep state, justices or whatever, who, and even lower than that, like FBI agents who are determined that this guy's going to pay, kind of like the Pompeo attitude. There are people that share Pompeo's attitude that we should do something about this. This was really wrong that he embarrassed the United States government. And this cannot stand. And these people have this attitude, and it's actually very un-American. It's very totalitarian, really. And certainly it hates the Constitution. And these people, we employ them. We also, in addition to everything else that we do that's terrible in this world, that's paid for by American taxpayer dollars, prosecuting Assange and paying the salaries of the people that insist that this is something that must be done, that will really solve a problem. We're paying for all of that. Just to remind everybody, you're paying for it.
Do you think there's any credibility in the intelligence community, either domestic or foreign, to the statements by the United States government within 55 minutes of the conclusion of the horrible attack on the Russian theater that, oh, it wasn't Ukraine and it was ISIS-K? Well, who the heck would believe that? They hadn't even caught these guys yet.
No, I think that's an example of the kind of people that are running our government. They don't even know how to proceed with a good lie. They jumped the gun, which of course revealed everything. Either if in 55 minutes of a very confusing event and deadly and foggy event that happened halfway around the world, if in 55 minutes you know who did it, who didn't do it, you've got all that cleared up, that reveals insight, that reveals foreknowledge. So why would you why would you not wait another 6 hours? But they couldn't wait. They couldn't wait because they don't know what they're doing. But yeah, no, there's zero credibility with that. I mean, absolutely zero. The warning that they put out to our diplomatic posts in Russia that all of the Americans should stay away from concert halls. But they don't bother to reveal their sources or any information to the targets of this, which of course we saw what happened. So they have zero credibility. You can't believe anything they say, and actually the style is offensive. I mean, if you're going to be a good liar, come on, that's all they do is lie. We ought to be better at it than what they are.
Here it is. We have an Australian citizen who was arrested because they said that he was not a good journalist. He was reporting from, what's the magazine? The
WikiLeaks.
WikiLeaks. And, so they've been fighting that. He's been in prison and he's been locked up in an embassy for all these years.
Yeah. And
now it's a legal thing back and forth. But the thing of it is, they're not dealing with where they arrested him. They're not going to punish him here, even though they have. And they're not going to send him back to Australia, even though Australia is opening their minds to something like that. Yeah. But no, it has to come to America. And I guess in looking at this case, Daniel, the one thing that has astounded me, because I don't remember this happening, but obviously it did, that Trump was, they tried to release Trump. The American CIA wanted to do it, and that of course failure. But the evidence is they talk about they were going to assassinate him.
Yeah.
I mean, what in the world is going on here? And I've had somebody a long time ago. He was from the old right, and he worked in the CIA and was involved in when they were, he worked in the CIA and helped establish that. But he came to the conclusion that any country that accepts a program like the CIA, it can no longer remain a republic. And I would say that it's coming pretty close to having happened in our country.
What happened earlier today, and Joe Loria writes, the High Court in London on Tuesday gave the United States an opportunity to rebuff Julian Assange's plea that he be allowed to appeal the Home Office's order to extradite him to the U.S. to face espionage charges. And Joe rightly points out, in a complex ruling at the Royal Courts of Justice, the court agreed with Assange that he had the grounds to ask for an appeal, but he invited the court ruled that the United States is invited to give the court assurances by April 16th that could negate Assange's arguments. So it's really a curlicue. He has the right to appeal the offer, if you can actually put it back up, appeal the order to extradite him, but the U.S. can preempt that with its own assurances.
Yes, and I keep thinking, assurances, how much are they worth?
From the Epoch Times, FDA settles ivermectin case, agrees to remove controversial Stop It posts.
Dealing with an illegal institution that regulates medicine, and in a free society it wouldn't exist. You wouldn't have an FDA.
Yeah.
I mean, you would have an FDA principle that would be a voluntary thing that could be worked out. But no, you don't have an FDA that's owned by the pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, no kidding.
And that's part of the the combination of big business and big government. And there is a medical industrial complex. FDA, and you hear so many stories of people being in the FDA and then they're into research, and they get out of the FDA and they have a good living afterwards.
Oh yeah,
because it makes a big deal. But we talk about the FDA right now for the prohibition of use of drugs, and that happens routinely over the years. And sometimes they might fall accidentally on doing the right thing. There are some bad things out there that they'll come across and they don't approve it. But that's not the way it's supposed to be done. There are other ways, because the one thing that they had to exclude when COVID hit was to exclude any discussion of it or anything that was known for 30 years in medicine. And people would appreciate the medication. They say, you can't use it and you'll be in trouble, you will be canceled. And it was a disaster. And I would say it'd be safe to say that a lot of people died because of their regulations.
Yeah, and it was worse than being canceled because doctors were losing their licenses, being forbidden from practicing medicine because they said, why don't you give this a try? I mean, what the FDA, as you say, in bed with the pharmaceutical companies, what they demanded is that there can be no treatments from the time you contact this supposed virus to the time you're in the hospital. You can't do anything but lie there and wait for it to happen, A tweet about it, Jeff Carlson tweets, the FDA has reportedly changed their position on ivermectin and agreed to remove all negative posts, if we can put that next one up. And he makes a point, I think you made it, and it's correct. They should, at a minimum, if we can there we go, they should at a minimum issue a formal announcement and apology. How many people might have been saved if the FDA had acted honestly? That's a good question.
Yeah.
And here's one of the ads they're going to take down. We talked about this on the show, how absurd and ridiculous this is. Put the next one on. This is one of the ads they're taking down. It's a picture for those of us just listening. It's that famous ad where a woman is holding a horse and a doctor is holding a man. It says, "You're not a horse, you're not a cow. Seriously, y'all, stop it. Why you should not use ivermectin." They had to take that down. It was such a disingenuous recommendation saying that this is only for horses and cows when it had been used, as you say, for humans for 50 years.
You know, they have to know they're defying common sense and what has been the practice of medicine for years. But why they do it, you say, well, what is their motivation? Did all of a sudden they forgot all the things that they should have known? Or could there have been a monetary benefit from doing this?
Well,
Stay along.
Yeah. You remember what it was like when we were doing the show during COVID? We were afraid to use that word during the show because even using it, YouTube would take down your show and give you a strike, and you could lose your entire show. Now, YouTube should give apologies for all the people they took down for saying this. You know, I mean, and look what they did to Rogan. Remember when Rogan got COVID and he said, "Look, I'm taking some ivermectin." They treated him like anathema. They treated him like the worst, disgusting person on earth. CNN famously ran a clip of him. They put a filter over his face to make him look gray and sick, because they wanted people to think that he was taking horse paste, taking horse medicine. Turns out he was right.
You know, the principle of malpractice should exist and does exist, but there's a lot of malpractice suits. You know, it gets really cluttered up for various reasons. But you're not allowed to sue the people who did this, put these ads up. No, you can't sue like that horrible ad you put up there. It's a blatant lie, and somebody died because of it. But no, that's not permitted.
Yeah, the only thing we can hope, and I don't know, maybe it'll happen that people will be more skeptical and they'll get angry a lot quicker. Because as you always say, they did start waking up, but it was very, very late in the game. So.